Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series finale of Arrow. A great series finale, to me, a beautiful series finale, a wonderful way to send off this series. There's quite a few things to kind of break down about this. Obviously, we're picking up, basically it's been like a month since the crisis event went down after the closing of all of that, and obviously we're back present day, and there's a lot that we end up discovering about. It's very different about this world that Oliver kind of corrected a lot of mistakes he made in the past, and I think it's such a beautiful thing. Like, for one, we see that his mom is still alive and well. It's like, oh my god. And then we see everyone else trying to, because obviously, there's that documentary that was a thing. Wasn't that episode? I think that was wasn't it last season? The Emerald Archer episode? Because I love the documentary was about to be about vigilante and stuff. And the lady who's doing it is kind of like, I feel bad because now she never thought it would be turned into like a memoriam. And now, getting interviews from his mom. Because for her, she is, very proud of the man that her, son ended up becoming, the hero that he ended up becoming. And obviously she interviews Diggle, and for Diggle, it's the whole thing of like Oliver was like, he thought that he'd have to carry this, he'd end up doing this all alone. That was always Oliver's thing of always feeling like this mission was his and his alone, and that it would go on forever. And he's like, I'm glad that Oliver was wrong about the first thing. I'm sad that I'm heartbroken by the fact is that he was wrong about the second thing. Because the first thing, that's like, the fact is we were all there for him. He didn't have to go at this alone. But the sad thing is that his mission is over. Because if his mission kept going, then, Diggle was kind of hoping that, it meant Oliver would always be around. But now it's like, no, and for him, he's looking for any means of just be like, and he ends up talking about it later on because he wants there to be some stuff in Star City going down, because if Oliver's mission isn't completely over, then Oliver isn't completely gone. There's at least some part of him still alive if that mission is still alive. But Renee's talking about the fact is the city's been good for the past month. When Oliver brought everything back, he fixed, he saved Star City in a way like he never could before, because that was always Oliver's issue, because for him, he felt like he could never do enough. But now it feels like I did it, by making this ultimate sacrifice, but not only saving the multiverse by making it this one world, but once again it will eventually spread out to others. The fact of the matter is I was able to do what I sought out to do from the beginning, save my city. And he did it in the most ultimate way finally. So I thought that's just kind of a beautiful element to kind of bring it all full circle. And what I love is this episode is filled to the brim. It's like, we brought everyone in for this episode. We see freaking Rory Ragman again. I'm like, he's just casually in the group. I'm like, what? That's nuts to me. And then we're casually dropping the fact that certain people are still alive, because like Renee's like, yeah, I'm running for office, I'm picking up after Lance, and it's like, Quentin's alive in this universe, which is very befitting, because remember, him and Laurel had that whole episode Reset where they were trying to save him over and over again. It was a way for Laurel to finally get to say goodbye to him, while also for Oliver it was a means of finally letting go that that there were just some things that were kind of beyond his control, that he just had to kind of just accept the whole Quentin dying thing. But he had an opportunity, and he was like, that was kind of a hard lesson he had to learn for Crisis, but with the powers he got, he was able to kind of rectify that and bring Quentin back, and I love that. I thought that was pretty neat. And I love another angle to this episode too, was like, you could at first Laurel was kind of taking it hard, which I'm like, that is interesting. Like, you and Oliver obviously had your issues, but I can't believe you're taking it so hard, because even Dinah's like, you're taking this harder probably than almost anyone else, and I'm wondering why. And then that moment I was like, because you're here, Earth 1 Laurel isn't here. And I was like, you feel bad because you're like, he brought back all these other people, but he didn't bring her back. And she even brings that up to Quentin, because it's like, with everything that Oliver fixed, he couldn't fix this thing, because she's thinking, because I'm here, she's like, maybe my existence here kind of screwed it up, which obviously it doesn't, because as we can see with Batwoman, eventually there's going to probably be ramifications for it, but there's currently ramifications for it, but Alice and Beth coexist on this Earth. But once again, like I said, as it turns into complications, we'll see kind of how that ends up developing. But for Quentin, it's like, because you are you are not wrong. It's a sense, it's like the fact of the matter is, if you are here, because that's the thing, Oliver made a choice to bring her. He could bring anyone back, and he brought back Earth to Laurel because this has become just as much as our home, because she has just as much right to live here because you fit here now. The other Laurel is gone, but the fact of the matter is, this is your home and this is your world, and because of who she's grown to be, despite their differences, Oliver recognizes her as the hero that she is. And the fact of the matter is, and Quentin's hugging her because it's like, might not be my daughter, but the fact of the matter is, you're still, this is right where you belong, essentially. And I thought that was kind of a beautiful thing, because it wasn't a mistake. Oliver brought back the Laurel he needed to bring back, so I thought that was just kind of a beautiful angle to it. Obviously, Sarah time travels to the future and brings Mia back, which is interesting too, because Mia's like, I want to talk. Like, the fact is, I got to be careful about talking about the future and stuff like that, which is interesting because I didn't even think about it, but like, Dinah's there. Remember what Dinah said last episode? She just kind of disappeared. There's no records of her. So I'm assuming, grand scheme of things, the fact is, this happens before she ended up disappearing. Like I said, we'll kind of talk about that later. But obviously, because for her, I'm wondering, is that whole William thing dealt with or not in the past? Because it's interesting, because it turns out like William got kidnapped present day, like here in 2020, while he also got kidnapped in 2040, but we don't know in the confines of the episode if that was something that was already resolved, and maybe in the context of everything it was, but obviously she's still dealing with the ramifications of everything, because she's like, I feel like I failed, or maybe it's in between, maybe she hasn't been able to track down William, but it's that whole thing of like, I gotta keep the future safe by not talking about what's going on, or even kind of warning Dinah about everything, or even Laurel about what's going to eventually come down the pipeline, and her life and everything. So obviously we have Roy kind of stressing about the fact is that it's like, well, I don't know if I can see Thea, because it's like, it's like, oh, well, both of Oliver's sisters going to be there. I was like, oh, Emiko's alive in this universe. I was like, oh my God. Because he recognized, the circumstances are what pushed Emiko down that path, that at the end she was able to change, and it wasn't like she was completely evil. She was a good person. So I thought that was a beautiful element to that. So it's just kind of like, oh, he was able to bring his sister back, because he never really got a chance to really know her, and now it presents an opportunity for Thea to really finally get to know her. But with everything, Roy was kind of nervous about being around Thea, because it's not because he's worried that it's not just about seeing her after the breakup. It's because he doesn't want to be broken up. He wants to be with her. He wants to spend his life with her, and he's kind of scared of but going through everything has made him realize that's what he wants more so than anything. And I thought that was beautiful. And I didn't talk about it, but I do like that they do this interesting thing where we're kind of flashing back to earlier Oliver stuff. In particular, it's Oliver and Diggle. And I think, obviously, out of anything, that's very befitting, because Diggle is his brother, and he is Diggle's brother. And the fact of the matter is, this started with Oliver alone, but it slowly unveiled with Diggle being the first part of Team Arrow, and it's like obviously we're back in the early days of Arrow, kind of going full circle, much like a lot of this season of him, going back to like the beginning, and Diggle trying to tell him to find a different way. I'm curious how much of that is how it originally went down, or I don't think it did, because remember, Oliver killed everyone, but not unless this is supposed to be like, oh, this is what happened then, or maybe this is something that Oliver shifted in his life to kind of put him on the right path. Maybe, I don't know, because Diggle's telling him like, don't kill this particular dude, but Oliver decides, for him it's like, this guy in particular is, a human trafficker and stuff like that. So the bad guys need to be put down. Oh, also, you gotta give it major props. I love that, with everything they did give us like one final like badass Arrow scene. It's like, yo, one man wrecking machine, thwip, arrows everywhere. I know thwip is Spider-Man thing. Just because that's the sound of it, the webs and stuff like that. I know, but it's just like, that was just a badass like one man army just like taking people down. It was just like, yo. It was pretty badass. And obviously it's also nice going full circle with him literally wearing the original suit again. I mean, to be fair, it's 2012, so obviously, but it's nice for that to come full circle. But it seems like when the time came, Oliver didn't kill the dude in particular. He actually spared him. But that's the thing, like, I don't know whether that's what originally went down, because I thought there were super rare occasions where Oliver didn't kill all the bad guys from season 1. He killed most of them, but I think there were some but I wonder, like I said, or is this something he shifted? but for him, it's like, I hope, because when it was all said and done, he was like, a lot of the people on that list deserve to die, but he was willing to give it another, he's willing to try it a different way to see, this be a test run to see if he can trust Diggle. And I love that, with like Diggle was doing the thing, he's like, you got to work with your hips with it. And he was like, if you do it good enough, maybe I'll take you out in the field one day with me. So I love that. But obviously it just represents like him and Diggle's relationship. Diggle has always been his confidant, like, he's kind of acted as like, Diggle's act as Oliver's like moral compass to kind of push him more so in the right direction, has been by his side through all of this, despite they've had their complications, obviously. But the fact is, through thick and thin, they've always had each other's back, and that was always Diggle's issue with this whole thing, was like, for him, it's like, more specific for the crisis thing, he felt bad because it's like, I wasn't there for him. But, at least for him, it's the thing of knowing that obviously Oliver, despite he wasn't there, at least he knows that Oliver wasn't alone in the end. So I thought that was kind of, nice. But it turns out, like I said, William got kidnapped, and obviously, Diggle kind of being in front of everyone, being like, well, the fact of the matter is, William wasn't taken, and the fact is that, Oliver's mission isn't over. He did everything, for this world and his family, so it's up to us to keep that family of his together. So they're gonna go rescue William. I didn't even talk about, obviously, Felicity popping up. I'm like, hey, Felicity! And it's just kind of like, and Mia's over there not introducing herself. I was like, oh my god, right? You don't know about Mia, do you? And it's like, she totally doesn't, because she probably thinks like, oh, that's just some random person there. But yeah. It was interesting because, like, obviously you have Roy trying to apologize to Thea, but she's like, no, I get it, you're trying to apologize. Literally, my nephew got kidnapped, and my brother's dad, like, kind of picked the worst time to try and do all this. But then he goes, like, the fact of the matter is, it took all of this to make him realize what he had. The fact of the matter is, what he wants from his life, and that's to spend the rest of it with Thea, and ultimately, proposes to her. And she's kind of like, what? So while that's happening, we have Rory, Ragman, in the cloak and everything, his rags again, and he's there with Renee, and I love, he scares everyone off, and Renee's like, oh, that was, effective. Normally, like, pop off a few, shots to kind of scare people away. He's like, yeah, but my way's scarier. And it's like, oh, like, we find out, we don't get the insight of it all, but the fact of the matter is, he's been going for a while, but eventually he got the rags back, and he's been doing the hero thing. And it's like, and, obviously for Renee, it's like, obviously me and Oliver didn't see eye to eye, which obviously is true, but obviously he respected Oliver. And then I love Rory being like, that's no surprise. And he's like, well, what does that mean? It's like, out of anyone on the team, Renee, you're the one that's the most like Oliver. And it's like, that's why they butted heads so much. And I think there's a part of, you can see Renee kind of perk up and smile a little bit, kind of knowing that. It's like, yeah, because, because he ends up talking about it later, that Diggle, Dinah, but also Oliver helped make him into the person that he is now. He's become a good man because he had a good teacher, And I thought, and like I said, it makes sense why they butted heads, because they're both very stubborn and very steadfast in their beliefs, and always kind of have a tendency to kind of want to go it alone. So you can definitely see some similarities between Oliver and Renee in that moment. So I thought that was kind of neat. But obviously, like, when it came down to William, he ended up being kidnapped by the dude that Oliver had spared. And for him, it's like, he had spent those 8 years locked up, and he wanted to get revenge, because it's like, he needed to kind of get payback. For the fact is, it was more so than anything, he was looking for a means of dying. But obviously, like, Mia didn't apply, do that, because it's like, no, my dad spared you. The fact of the matter is, you're going back to prison. Because I think for her, it's believing again, not what am I trying to say? The fact is that she is respecting what her dad did before, and it's like, no, I'm not going to help you get what's kind of like you want, like, you deserve to be locked up again. And obviously this whole thing kind of inspires, the city too, because like the news report is like, even though Oliver Queen is confirmed dead, the fact of the matter is, there's someone else who took up the hood, showing that so many people were inspired by Oliver. And I think that's a beautiful message about this episode, is showing you how many people Oliver touched and how many people were affected by Oliver. He gave birth, to so many heroes, and so many people are there gathered around. The man who started this all alone, look at how many people are at his funeral, how many people loved and cared for him. How many people he's impacted their lives, because at the end of the day, he helped make them better, And I thought that was, such a beautiful element. Obviously, Diggle kind of having to say goodbye to the bunker and everything because the city doesn't need them right now. Don't need vigilantes. Renee's getting ready to take up, the whole mayor thing. And Dinah's like, well, she can go out there because other places need a hero. And obviously, Lila got a new job position. So there was also that moment I thought was beautiful where like Lila was panicking about getting William back, and Diggle's like, well, what's wrong? And she's like, the fact of the matter is, what if we don't get William back? Because Oliver brought our family back together. What if we can't do the same thing for him? But it's like, Diggle was like, no, we're going to. And they do, And obviously, Sarah introduces, not directly, but from afar, it's like, yep, that shows Felicity. It's like, yeah, that's your daughter Mia. She's like, what? But it's like, it's kind of a lot to take in. And for her, it's a thing of like, the fact is, Oliver will never get to see Mia grow up because she doesn't know at that time that Oliver actually met Mia. But it's like, he will never get to see you grow up. And for her, it's like, if I meet Mia, it's like, it's almost like I'm missing that a little bit too, because obviously Mia's back there as a baby and everything, and it's like she doesn't want to miss that opportunity because at least one of them has to be there, sadly, to see it, because Oliver, she like I said at the time, she doesn't know that Oliver had the chance to kind of see Mia, but still we see even Anatoly's there too. I'm like, Anatoly, it's like, that was someone he considered a brother and obviously a friend, and obviously they mended a lot of fences too, so it's nice to see him there as well. And I love the fact is that Quentin's speech at the beginning, because for him it's like, me and Oliver didn't always see eye to eye. The fact of the matter is, I didn't like him. I blamed him for everything with Sarah. The fact of the matter is, I didn't, I hunted him relentlessly. But the fact of the matter is, look what Oliver was able to do and accomplish. He was a great man. And the fact of the matter is, he was flawed. The fact is that he didn't always do the right thing, but kind of, made up for it, is proof of how much of a better man he was. That the fact of the matter is, he grew from his mistakes to grow and progress as a hero. And, it was, I thought that was kind of beautiful to kind of have things kind of come full, because they've come full circle. Like, obviously, like, him and Quentin have been on good terms for a while, but to kind of have things go even further, it's nice, It was crazy who else showed up at the funeral. Talia and Nissa. That was interesting. And it's like, oh, she's like, I know, I'm sorry for your loss. She's like, I kind of erased me and Oliver's marriage. But she's like, oh, it's still your feelings. I don't know. I think there's still a part of her that kind of like, despite it, because I think if she didn't care about Oliver, she wouldn't have shown up to train Mia like she does. Or rather, she did, I wonder, does that still potentially happen in, under these circumstances? I would, depending on how much change and how much stay the same. But it's like, that's why I think, despite what she says, I think she still cared about him, because they've had their bumpy issues, but like Oliver's kind of helped her and been there. And even Talia's kind of like, well, Oliver kind of he literally helped me despite everything. So, and I love, Sarah popping up and introducing. It's like, oh yeah, this is my beloved, which I'm like, ooh, that's going to be awkward. Is that something they're going to tackle potentially in the future with other things? Because like, Sarah's, her ex is around and stuff like that. I'm like, I wonder if Ava going to have any conversations about that. Probably not. And Sarah's also going to have to bring up the whole, oh yeah, this is my girlfriend Ava. It's like, that might turn into something, maybe not. But also, Felicity and Mia kind of have their first like true introduction, and it's like, she obviously, it's like, oh wait, for her it's like she's happy to know that, oh wait, you got to meet your dad. And it's like, yeah. And I think for her that's enough on its own to know, like, oh my god, you got to meet your dad, and I'm so happy about that. I think, because now it's like she knows that Oliver got to know her child, got to know his daughter, got to see her grow up. It wasn't just her, he got to see William grow up too, so I thought that was the beautiful thing about it. And the fact is that it's like, yeah, he helped make me into a hero. And she's like, I'm sure, I can see that you're sure you're a lot like your dad in affected man. It was beautiful for them kind of to be, united like that. And also Barry and Kara showing up, because Barry is like, I was there in the end. I just keep racing through my mind. I wish I had done more. But she's like, I know you tried all you could. He's like, how could you? Because I know you, Barry. The fact is, you would give your all. And so and Carr showing up to him, like, because I think for them it's like a whole thing of like he helped bring all this together. He made this possible for all of them. So I thought that was, a beautiful send off in many different regards, especially in he sacrificed his life to kind of save these two, because Barry and Kara are the pillars of, like, obviously they are a big pillar of the Justice League. They're part of the foundation of it, and I think it's very befitting that them out of anyone would be there, at Oliver's funeral, considering he sacrificed his life to save them during Elseworlds, and what that meant in the grand scheme of the crisis and everything. So, but obviously it was thing of like, oh, I forgot too, Tommy's alive. It's like, oh my god. And Tommy, apparently him and Laurel were together, which I think that was Oliver playing, well, because obviously they were together, but that was obviously a complicated thing. But at the same time, I think despite Laurel not being around anymore, he still wanted them to have a happy life together. So it's that thing of like, it makes your brain wonder, like, okay, so like, how did it all work out? Like what those changes actually meant to the series overall? Like, oh, the moments like, oh, knowing that, because even Tommy's like, yeah, I mean, meeting you, Laurel from a different Earth is one thing, which it's no stranger than learning the fact is I was dead in another universe is kind of crazy. But at least seeing her kind of made things a little bit better. It made him feel happier, in a grand scheme of things. And what I also thought was, what I liked was that moment between Thea and her mom. It's like, if Oliver could bring all this stuff back, why didn't he bring Dad back? And it's because it's like for her and for Moira, she kind of figured Oliver made changes to stuff that wouldn't change who he became, because bringing back Robert would mean undoing what made Oliver into the man that he was, who he became. And it's like Oliver kept everything intact that made him to the good and the bad, that made him into, it was all of that. Because remember when he became Spectre, it was like you have to remember every punch, every arrow. Like he had to remember everything in his life, and that's kind of reflected in this, because to do what he needed to change to make things better, but also keep stuff the same that would also ultimately make it so that he became the man that he became, And I thought that was beautiful. And obviously Diggle being the one that speaks the words, like, being his brother and everything. And I love that he was like, I always thought that Oliver, he always talked about becoming someone else, something else. I thought it was him becoming a Green Arrow, and it was like, no, it was him becoming a better man, and what that meant for all of them. Like I said, these group of people, that shows you how full Oliver's life was. The fact of the matter is he had so many people surrounding him like that. So I just thought that was a beautiful, beautiful send-off to Oliver. And obviously there's still more to trickle down, because the fact of the matter is, once again, Renee running for mayor, kind of get a little insight into that from last episode about like how obviously that works out. We see Diggle leaving with the kids and Lila, but then like something comes falling from the sky at night. I was like, wait, are you? And then it's like he goes over, opens it, shining green. I'm like, oh my god, nice little tease. I like that a lot. So because at the same time the line is like that, it shows that this world is so much bigger. There's like so much more out there, kind of obviously kind of alluding to like obviously so much more out there in this universe, obviously in the Arrowverse and stuff, and obviously showing like, so because we know that obviously on different Earths he was Green Lantern. And obviously we see a Green Lantern on Earth 12 at the end of Crisis, so it's neat. It's all like, so John becomes Green Lantern in this world. I'm like, that's so dope. There's the whole situation with Mia going back to her time, because it's like obviously this Star City doesn't need it, but her time does, so I think these circumstances are probably why, Laurel decides to kind of, it's not just about what she sees about the future of Star City. It's because of everything that I think it's a combination of obviously trying to keep up looking after Oliver's family, but also because this is a city Oliver sacrificed his life to keep the peace for. And, she probably feels like, hey, I'm here for a reason. Oliver brought me back instead of Earth One Laurel. This is where I belong. This is my home. So I got to fight for it too. So hence, everything potentially will turn into the whole Canary thing. And interesting enough, we see Dinah leave, but like that's what I was kind of alluding to. Like when we see her leave it, and almost halfway expected her to kind of disappear. But I guess they didn't want to kind of end on kind of a depressing note like that for her. But I'm assuming like after that, I guess at some point after she leaves town, something goes down, and that leads to the events that happened in last episode, where it's like she somehow got landed in the 2040 Star City with there being no records of her ever existing. So that's a whole thing. But I'm thinking that's going. It's not something, like I said, they could have made it happen immediately, but I guess that's going to be a storyline in its own. So she has to leave first, and then like whatever happens on her journey is what leads her to 2040. And we did have Roy and Thea getting together, and like she's like making up, like, because I love it, he's like, your mom let me in. It's like she didn't like me much before. It's like, well, because you were a criminal. And he's like, well, I wouldn't kind of take that back, because if he had never stolen her purse, they never would have met. And if I love it. Is nice that knowing that obviously throughout all this that they are staying together, because she's like, next time you're going through something, don't just like run off and leave me behind. And he was like, I promise. Can you make a promise that you won't? And he's like, I won't. And she's like, all right, then yes. And it's like, it's kind of a sad thing. I'm like, but Ollie's not there. But at least you like to think Oliver's watching from wherever he is, despite everything, to know, that's what's happening with Thea, so that's what, I'd like to believe. God, there's just so much. I didn't talk about Curtis being there, which I'm like, Curtis. And then Emiko, like I said, meeting, her sister, and they finally having this opportunity. It's like, oh, dude, it's so good. It's so heartwarming, dude. And then we get, the thing at the very end. Hell, I didn't even talk about the intro too. I should have. Like literally all the different arrowheads over the course of the series. I was like, that's a very nice and beautiful touch. But obviously picking up where the season 7 finale left off with Felicity and the Monitor, and him taking her away. Obviously this is Felicity from 2040, and she wants to be with Oliver. She goes through a portal, and she's kind of her younger self again, and she's in the office and everything, and she's looking at it, and then lo and behold, Oliver's there. I'm like, dude. And for the fact is that it's like, them being reunited again, and she's like, so why are we in your mom's office? Why are you? I never thought the afterlife would be in the form of your office. He's like, it's my mom's office. I wanted it to be in the first place where I saw you. And she's like, well, wouldn't that be? And he's like, oh, you would think so. And then it kind of flashed back to like the first time he saw her, and it's so beautiful to see that story come full circle in that regard too. And so, it's crazy to look at everything that they've been through, what they've experienced, and it's like, we have forever for me to tell you this story about, everything that's, kind of happened and stuff. And I'm like, and I'm happy more so than anything that they are together, that they literally are, them being together is like the last shot of this show. So, I think it's such a beautiful ending. Like, to me, I don't know how people are going to feel about it. I think, honestly, the entire episode being what it is, it not being some, like, super action-packed episode, you can feel however you want to about it, but me, I think this is a perfect ending, giving a lot of closure to not only Oliver's character, but the show. And to me, I think that's the beauty of this thing. That Arrow, maybe it won't continue on, and maybe this is the end for Oliver, but the fact of the matter is, all the people he's affected, all he's touched in this Arrowverse, will continue on in some shape or form. Stuff from this show will continue on, whether it be in, the Canary show that, they're setting up, or even in other shows. Like, the effects of this Arrowverse will have ripple effects. And, I consider myself very fortunate to have been along on this crazy ride since the beginning. I say that a lot about shows, the crazy ride, but it's been a hell of a ride. This is actually like the first superhero show I've seen kind of like progress over the years to an end, because even Smallville, I saw bits and pieces of Smallville here and there, but like it wasn't until more recently that I saw the entirety of the series. I've seen the end. Regardless, I'm going on a tangent and stuff, but even when something comes to an end, because it isn't just about, the life that Oliver lived, it was also the legacy he left behind. And once again, everyone at that funeral is a representation of that legacy he created, and it's a beautiful thing. And like I said, they could always end up popping up somewhere else in the Arrowverse in some other shape or form, doesn't even necessarily have to be the Canary show. It could be some other show in the Arrowverse, and I think that's the wonderful, beautiful thing about this. So, obviously, as I always say with these things, you know, thank you, Arrow, for being, you know, no one knew that Arrow would grow into what it's grown into, growing into the Arrowverse, which has led us to situations like Crisis on Infinite Earths. All the crossovers, all the memories, it's sad, yet, you know, I'm happy to kind of, you know, see it all kind of come together in this culmination of this beautiful ending, you know? And I think it's an ending. I'm glad that at the end, Oliver got an ending despite everything that, you know, he deserved. You know, it's like becoming the hero, the symbol that he did. And, you know, and I don't know. Like I said, what I usually say during these things is I wish everyone involved, from cast and crew, I wish them the best in their future endeavors, whatever that may be, you know? So, obviously, like, one thing I've heard recently is I know, like, Stephen Amell, it was, you know, and I think I never knew this was a thing, but I have heard this more recently, obviously, for a lot of actors. It's like when you become a part of, when something's becoming a part of your life for so long and it ends, it's, you know, it's a hard thing. So, you know, my best wishes to him, like, obviously, like, you know, I think he has subsequently been feeling better about, you know, everything, but obviously, like I said, my best wishes to him and everyone associated with this show for, taking us on this hero's journey, you know. Like I said, I'm glad to have been a part of this since the beginning, and it's wild to think how far we've come to get here, you know. And yeah, once again, thanks. So obviously, I always ramble on a bit too much because I never want to ever stop, you know. Because once I stop, it's officially over. So, and then I'm gonna start, you know, tearing up more because I'm like, ah. But nevertheless, like always, till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good